Okay, let's see. All right. We got that up so I can see our see who's here and who's commenting on my phone. We are coming up on the end of the year. Absolutely amazing that 2024 has already gone by and we're into the holidays. I don't know about you guys, who's ready for the holidays, because I am certainly not ready. I'm nowhere near ready. This is likely the first time in a long time that good morning, Susie, that I am not ready for Christmas. Like I haven't even finished decorating the tree. Like it's kind of crazy where we're at. But anywho, that's okay, right? It's going to be what it is. But we're going to be grateful for a great holiday season with family and friends. So if you are ready for the holidays, let me know because I am going to be jelly about that. Who last week experienced that crazy Facebook outage? I was supposed to do a live training, and good morning, Missy, and I couldn't. All I had access to was Facebook Messenger, and it kind of really threw me for a loop. And and one of the topics we're talking about today when we're talking about strategic planning is building in, the flexibility and, plan Bs and things like that. And it really, I thought I was ready with the plan B, but I wasn't because I was kind of like thinking, wow, like, okay, so Facebook is down. What do I do next? So we'll see, right? So that's part of the reason why this really popped out at me to do this training today, because talking about strategic planning, people start to think like it's overwhelming to even think about what that plan might look like, to come up with a strategy and how am I going to do this? And it becomes overwhelming and we get frozen and we just don't want to take any of the steps. Or we dive right in and all of a sudden we've got this great plan, but we don't know what to do and how to implement it. And so we're going to try and come together and give you 3 really simple, actionable steps that you can take to really set yourself up for 2025 with a plan that is adaptable, but yet keeps you on track and moving forward. So strategic planning, that's what we're going to be talking about today. If you guys don't know who I am, my name is Karen, and I am the host of this training every Tuesday morning, 11 o'clock Eastern. And we talk about different random topics. And it's normally driven by one, what we are covering in the Women's Business Resource Community, but 2, we adapt it or adjust it based on what everybody else is talking about inside the group, this group, as well as the other groups that I belong to. I kind of watch the chatter and figure out kind of what are people needing support with this week. And we adjust based on that. So coming up to the end of the year, looking at 2025, we need to have a plan. And so with that, we're going to be looking at it from a holistic perspective as well, because as a holistic coach, right, like I do coaching, but I integrate the mind, body, and spirit into the session. So we take the whole you into consideration when we are putting together these types of plans and strategies for you to implement. And we're going to do that today as well. 3 things. We're going to talk about kind of defining your metrics. And if I were to ask you guys the word metrics, what does that mean to you? When you hear the word metrics, what does it mean? What do you think of? What comes to mind? We're going to kind of talk about that. 2, we're going to talk about that flexibility piece, because everything is not always a clear line, which we found out last week, right? That's, I think, the second time that happened in the last year, I want to say. In 2024, there was the second time Facebook had that outage. And the 3rd thing we're going to talk about is quarterly themes. And you've likely heard other people talk about, oh, my theme for the year is, right? This is what I really want to focus on, right? So inside our organization, we do pick a theme. So 2023 was Thrive, right? We really focus on how we can support people to thrive in their business and to really keep moving out of survivability and surviving into thriving. And that was our focus for 2023. And then last year, or this year, 2024, it was flourishing. We wanted to really focus on bringing people not just thriving, but flourishing, where they're taking their business to that next level, right? So our overarching theme for 2025 is soar, because now we've kind of been building all along over the last several years, and now we want our small businesses and our members and the group members to really soar, that they've had all these strategies that they've been given and the resources, and that now it's like, how do you take advantage of all of that for you to soar in your business? Because we want to have the solutions in place that, again, allow you to have flexibility to be growing your business throughout the year. And that feeling of soaring, that's our goal for next year. That's our theme. So when we're thinking of these three things, metrics, what do you guys think of? What came to mind? What does it look like for you when you think of metrics? So we know that you think of Facebook or Instagram, any of the social platforms, and we can say, yeah, metrics are how many likes, what's our engagement? Are people sharing? Are they commenting? Is our following growing, right? So the metrics can be that, but it can be other things too. The best thing about metrics is you get to define which metrics are important to you and which ones are going to allow you to review easily, regularly, so you can keep tabs on what you're working on. Are they working or are they not? Right? So when you think about looking at your metrics for the upcoming year, what did you happen to look at for 2024? Like, that's your first step. We need to review. Remember, we're not going back in history to live there and find regrets or disappointment. We're going back to visit 2024 to say, what worked? And we want to celebrate what worked. What didn't work? Good morning, Tiffany. Right? What didn't work for you? Identify those. Write them down and say, okay, that didn't work. We tried this campaign, or we tried that approach, or we switched up this part of our brand, and we switched up this part of our vision and our messaging. This worked, but that didn't. Why? Why didn't it work? Where was the misalignment? The only way we can learn and grow is by knowing what we don't know. And what we don't know from 2024 is what didn't work. You need to visit it, learn from it, so you can adapt to it, right? Change what you need to change. Or, if something completely failed and didn't work at all, which, trust me, all businesses experience that, right? It's stepping outside your comfort zone and saying, I'm going to try it and see what happens. If it doesn't work, well, that's okay, because I tried it, and now I can say, let's move on to the next step. So really know what worked for last year and what didn't work. If it really worked, then why did it work? What was so on point that it was successful? And when we set those goals up, right, we want to make sure we're using that SMART framework, right? So when you think about it, your goals, your campaigns, whatever situations you're looking at, whatever events, you always have, like, is it specific? What are we setting up? What do we want to achieve with this? It's specific. You need to make sure it's measurable, right? That is achievable. Is it relatable to your overall goal for the business? And is it timely? So an example would be for 2025, one of the metrics is you want to increase your revenue by 25% in the first 3 quarters. So that would be, quarter 3 is the end of September. So what are you going to do to increase revenue? You start to basically backtrack from that. And you say, what do I need to do? Okay, so I need to increase my lead generation. What am I going to do for that? What's my conversion rate? So this is where you start looking at those specific metrics when we talk about social media and the different platforms and what's happening there, right? So with that, you want to increase, we're going to use that example as we work through today. If we want to increase revenue, that means we need to increase what? We need to increase our following, increase our engagement, increase the commenting, the sharing, and the conversion, right? The click-through rate. So if you put a call to action of visiting a certain URL, you want to know how many people are actually clicking it and hitting your landing page. So understanding what that looks like allows you then to say, okay, our messaging's on point. Maybe we're falling a little short. What do we need to do to change it? Right? So by doing that, you say, okay, so now we want that goal. We need to look at that conversion rate, which means you want to increase the number of people coming to your landing page. 2, increase the number of email people that are subscribed to you. And I don't know about you, but like I get inundated with emails, and I try to really, from our business perspective, to not overwhelm. There's that fine balance. I know a lot of experts say you've got to be in your email subscribers inbox like 4 to 5, maybe 6 times a week. And that makes my heart stop. I don't know about you guys. How many of you guys have an email subscriber list where people can subscribe and you contact them regularly? Do you use a lead magnet? What do you guys use? Do any of you guys want to share what you're using? If you are using, if you're not, that's okay, because that's something you can be looking at for 2025, because that's one of the metrics you can be monitoring. So growing that email list, that subscriber list, you might want to say, we need 500 new subscribers by the end of June. So by the end of the second quarter, because we know based on what we reviewed from 2024, that from our email list, we get 2 or 3 customers a week based on what we're sending them, right? And I'm using it as an example. So with that, you're like, okay, we need to increase it by 25%. What are you doing now? If right now you're doing like 100, and we're going to use this as basic math for me, keep my brain simple, right? You have 100 a month. You need to increase your revenue by 25%. That means you need an extra 25 on average a month happening by the time you hit the end of quarter 3. How are you going to do that extra 25? What does that email subscriber list look like? So based on that, people linking through, right? So if you have a list of 1,000 and 100 people are clicking through and buying something, then now you need 1,250 email subscribers to get that to 125. So by setting that second goal, right, that second metric of growing that email subscription base by X number of followers, like emails, then you're going to say, I know natural conversion is, without doing anything different, natural conversion is this. And we should hit our 25% increase, or maybe we're going to fall short. So do we need to do something different? What does that look and feel like? And that's where it kind of comes back when we get to that, the quarterly themes piece. We'll talk about that, how we can adjust what that looks and feels like, what the messaging might be. So think about, as we're going through this right now, what is one metric you would like to see happen in 2025? What one metric do you want to adjust, improve on, monitor when we think of your business perspective? What is one thing you want to approach and monitor and track? And if you want to share, that'd be awesome. If you don't, that's okay too. So yeah, so I kind of build in a pause. I forgot my water. So it normally is my excuse to take a breath so I don't just keep rambling and talking. So, because that's how I watch for comments. So knowing you want to increase, we're going to use that example, right? So increase your email list to be able to increase your overall revenue, then you have something to track, right? So you can track your email subscriber list first and see how that ultimately starts converting. Then your plan is, what am I going to do to increase my subscriber list? Do I need to add a new giveaway, a new lead magnet. What was the lead magnet you used before? Do you think it's something that you want to continue with, or possibly introduce a new lead magnet that's more relevant to current times? And that would be one of my recommendations. If you've used the same lead magnet for more than 3 or 4 months, my recommendation is you want to switch it up. You want to make sure that you're staying current and relative, because some of the people that chose not to subscribe with that lead magnet all of a sudden see something new and they'll be like, oh, I want that. They hadn't subscribed for however long they've been following you, but now the new lead magnet catches our attention. So that's the one thing you want to be watching. How are you collecting and bringing people into your journey to nurture them and to build a relationship with them? Right? Using that example of increasing revenue, which is based on increasing your email subscriber list. Another example might be setting time, like 1 day a month, to unplug for just you and to just sit back, right? So when you think of corporate, right? When I worked in corporate, it was you got X number of holiday days a year, you got X number of sick days a year. And we used them, right? You either used them or you lost them at the end of the year. They didn't roll over. So, we were always calling them sanity days, because even though we weren't sick, I would take one every couple of months just to make sure, one, I was using them, and two, to truly give myself a physical, mental, and emotional break from my job. And I do that with my business now. Like, I plan out certain days each month that I'm just not going to have appointments scheduled. I'm not going to be open for, last minute bookings, et cetera, to give myself that downtime. And especially if you work from home, right? Like, working from home, you're looking around and you have all of the stuff that you normally have in your home, right? Whether it be laundry or dishes or cleaning, or I need to run these errands, I need to go get groceries, I need to get to the dentist, right? I have an eye appointment, a doctor's appointment. We're trying to manage our business as well as manage our household. It's a lot. And it can really increase burnout if you do not allow yourself time every month to just unplug and do nothing. And I'm not talking normal weekends. Like, I think of my weekends, and as much as I would love to like unplug and not do anything, just talk about me, I also have 2 teenagers that I want to be able to spend time with and do things with. So my weekends, that's what my focus is my family. So I still need that 1 day a month that's just for me. That if I want to binge watch Netflix all day, then that's what I'm going to do. Right? So what are you going to do for 2025 that's about you? How are you going to prioritize your health? Mentally, emotionally, physically. I want to challenge you for next year to have that as one of your metrics that you're going to monitor and manage. So if by the end of January, if you don't hit that metric, what are you going to do in February to adjust your schedule, your approach, your mindset about allowing yourself to take that day just for you without guilt? And this is the part of the mindset, right? Because as small business owners, there's so many things we need to do that we start to feel guilty about taking that day for ourselves. So we need to work on giving ourselves permission that it's okay. I'm allowed to take the day and do whatever that looks like. Go for a walk or go for a hike or, go hang out with friends, whatever that looks like. So that's my challenge to you guys. As much as you're going to have those business metrics, I want you to have a personal wellness metric for 2025. It's going to bring that balance for you guys and help with your stress and reduce the overwhelm. Allow you to gain clarity after those days. You'll come back so much more refreshed. And And yes, even you might be going, but I'm a new business and I have so much to do. Like I can't afford the time not to be doing something. And my challenge to you is you can't afford not to give yourself the time. Okay. So that's defining your metrics. Take a look at, identify, 1 to 3 things you want to follow for next year that you really want to manage and adapt as you go through the year. What are the 3 metrics you want to follow? And then what's the 1 metric for you as a personal wellness metric you want to dive into and manage as well? Because this then leads into the second topic, right? The flexibility. We need flexibility because things don't go in a straight line. And a prime example is, last week. What was my flexibility around not being able to fulfill my promise, my obligation, my expectation of doing that live training inside a different group? It was out of my control. So the flexibility starts to look like addressing my own mindset, my own guilt of not showing up, right? And then what's my plan B? Record something and then post the recording when I'm able to, right? So there's still a training, it just wasn't live, right? That would be one option as a plan B. So when we're looking at flexibility, we want to be looking at buffer time. How many times have you thought, this is only a 5-minute job. I can get this done in 5 minutes. And then it ends up taking you 15. How many of you experienced that? And while you're sharing, if you want to share, this is my husband. I love my husband dearly. It was our 18th wedding anniversary yesterday. I love him dearly, but he is forever saying, when we're getting ready to go away someplace, whether it to be visit family or whatever, he'll be like, I can do that like in the morning. It's only a 5-minute job. I can get it done. It's like 5 minutes. It's only 5 minutes. And then by the 10th time he said that, I'm like, well, now it's going to be an hour because you now have to add up all those 5-minute tasks and it's going to take you an hour. So how are we going to do an hour? It's not just a 5-minute job, right? So they start to back up on each other. So that buffer time allows you to say, okay, that 5-minute task, it took me a little longer, but I've built in that time in between now and the next task or to do or meeting or session. So I'm not late. And I don't impact the quality of the job I was doing on that task, right? So buffer time, an example is, I don't know how many of you use a scheduling system like Calendly or Schedulicity. So when you create your appointment schedule, they always ask, how much buffer time do you want before and after each meeting or session? And what they're trying to do is give you prep time and close time after those sessions. And for us as a professional, as a small business owner, we need to adapt that to how it works within our business. So do you need 15 minutes in between tasks in order for you to be able to switch your focus and get settled in and working? Or does it only take you 5 minutes? I mean, some people can switch on a dime and they can go from being super productive in this task and still being super productive in that task, and they're not even related. How well do you know yourself? That how much time do you need to switch? And be honest, right? So sometimes sessions go over, meetings run longer, or they run shorter, and now you have more time in between. Not necessarily a bad thing. If you've never really tracked your time in between tasks, that would be one step you're going to want to take. And I would say the month of January, really take a look at how you're spending your time and almost do like a time audit and say, okay, so from 9 to 9:30, I did this. And then I started at 9:50 and I worked until 10:30. And then you had that 20-minute gap in between. What did you do with that? And again, when you're doing this audit of what you're doing with your time, this is not about judging yourself. It's not about coming up with excuses. Oh, I was doing this or I was doing that. It's not about that. It's about really getting clear what you're doing. And it might have been where you finished that task and you got a phone call, right? And you needed to deal with the phone call. It could be a doctor or a dentist or, somebody calling you because they needed you for something and you took the phone call. It just is. It happens, right? So, or you made a phone call or you were responding to emails and they kind of took longer than you thought. Getting clarity on what you're doing in the times that maybe you're not really thinking that you're busy or productive. It will give you that clarity to say, okay, so wow, like I spend a couple hours a day responding to emails, making phone calls, working on things that aren't directly responsible or included in my business, but they're important and they need to be done, right? And so when I'm talking about emails and phone calls, I'm talking about personal emails and phone calls, right? So 2 teenagers in school, like I get emails all day long through their school system and they're mostly updates, but boy, like I'm clearing notifications all the time from them, right? So one of my goals for 2025 is figuring out a solution where I can turn off notifications for their emails so I don't have to deal with it during the day and I can address them at night, right? Because so that's one of my metrics. I'm going to be looking at how do I manage my email time better. So when you're thinking about that, looking at how you're spending your time is important because then in February, you can say, okay, this is what I learned. This is how I need to adjust. And how am I going to adapt my schedule to allow myself to have that time in my day so I can not have to feel stressed that I'm either showing up to a meeting like right on time or showing up late or not getting a task completed on time because you didn't allow enough time or you ran out of time, right? So, and always have a plan B, right? Like last week, my plan B was, uploading a recording. What would be the plan B if you aren't able to complete a task or to show up to a meeting or to get to an appointment you might have had? What's your plan B for your day? So all of a sudden your day gets shifted sideways, right? And you're completely redirected due to unseen circumstances. All the work that you were supposed to do that you're not able to do, what's your plan B for getting it done without jeopardizing the quality of the work you're doing, jeopardizing the relationship with your clients or your customers, and still nurturing those relationships in a positive way? What are some of the plan Bs you can have in your back pocket to ensure that you can still follow through? Do any of you have plan Bs now in place that you can think of or that you fall back on? And if you do, I'd love for you to share them because everybody, and I say everybody because, and I include myself, we are always looking for alternate ways to gain back time without overwhelm and stress. So learning how other people deal with having what a plan B looks like and how they use it is super helpful. So any ideas you have around creating those plan Bs, please share them. Because even if somebody doesn't use it specifically like what you use it, they can take the idea and adjust it for it to work for them. And I think that's a topic we don't hear about a lot. When I kind of, scroll through and see different conversations happening, there's not a lot of talk about how do we adjust our schedule when unforeseen circumstances happen. What's our plan B? How do you create a plan B? So I would love to hear what your plan Bs are. And if you have a plan C and a plan D, there are those people that have like multiple levels of backup plans. So I want you to think about that. The final thing we're going to talk about, right? So we started off when we're talking about strategic plans, like defining the metrics we're going to track, follow, so we can keep ourselves on track and motivated and moving forward throughout the year. We talked about that flexibility and bringing in, reviewing and adjusting our time and doing a time audit and adding in buffer time. And do we give ourselves enough buffer time? One of the ways we're able to create the metrics, understand how to create a plan B and adjust, is by having an overarching theme every quarter. When we create a theme, it simplifies our bigger projects into smaller, actionable steps. And that's important. So your quarterly themes, right? Like when we were talking in the beginning, I was saying, yeah, our theme is for the year, SOAR. That kind of is one of the things we filter down, all of what we're creating and developing. But when we talk about quarterly themes, we're talking about January. We want to look at our brand awareness. So all of the projects we're coming up with and we want to be working on is going to be about building brand awareness. It could be customer growth. It could be streamlining operations, right? So if we think of those three and we go back to the example of increasing our revenue by 25%, building brand awareness allows us to kickstart understanding the metrics we're following and reviewing, because the greater brand awareness we have, what happens? Our lead generation starts to work. We can adjust it. The second quarter, customer growth, because as we build the brand awareness, it flows into customer growth naturally. As our brand becomes more known, people recognize it. And it's not just your branding of color and symbolism, right? Your logo, it's about your voice and your messaging as well. So as you're building that awareness, it will naturally lead to customer growth. Right? So then everything you're working on in the second quarter is around that customer growth. What are we doing, right? Because when we're saying, we want to increase our email subscriber list by 500 people, guess what? That's the customer growth. That's part of that metric. Okay. So is this making sense for you guys when we're talking about the quarterly themes? Because it can also be, streamlining your operations. Because now you've gone through the brand awareness, you've gone through the customer growth, you're going to soon find out how nicely things flow inside your business, inside the operational side of your business. And that's where certain procedures that you put in place to handle the customer growth allows you to say, oh, we need to find a better way of doing this, because this is way too labor intensive. There's way too many steps. How do we lean it out? How do we get the same job done without as many steps? So, right, so when you kind of think of that, what does that look like? What would be your themes for next year? Like those are 3 examples and how they would flow back to back, right? So thinking about that, what are you guys thinking? Knowing that you have ideas of what metrics you want to be working on, how you're going to include flexibility, what types of overarching themes for each quarter can you be working with? if you have some ideas, jot them down because it might help spark other people when they're watching as well, especially if they're watching the replay. So, and this is interactive. Like I'm talking away, but please put your comments and questions in the comment section because this is about supporting you guys. So if you have questions around, what metrics might be appropriate for you, let's talk about it. That's what today's about, right? So with these quarterly themes, so say you identify, if we use our example as an example, right? Customer growth and, for the first quarter, we're going to come up with 1 to 3 new projects that's going to support the customer growth. So what would those projects look like? Or what do we say? We said brand awareness for the first quarter. I read it backwards. So, right, so Brent, what are those 1 to 3 projects we're going to do in the first quarter to build brand awareness? I said it backwards. Got myself corrected. So, what would that look like? What kind of projects would you be looking at to build your brand awareness? Is it a certain email campaign? Is it a certain message on social media? Is there an advertising piece you want to add into it? Facebook ads, Instagram ads? Do you want to get on a different social platform like Snapchat or TikTok? Or like the newer one that's starting to blow up is Blue Sky, right? So what can you be doing? What are the 1 to 3 projects you can do to build your brand awareness? And then when you identify those, you go into your second quarter and say, okay, if our theme is customer growth, what are 1 to 3 new projects that we can work on in that second quarter that doesn't start all over again, but can build on those projects in the first quarter? And then again, right, streamlining your operations. What are 1 to 3 projects we can be looking at that help build on the previous 2 quarters? Because you're learning as you go, right? So the quarterly themes are fun. They add a fun element, I think. Maybe that's the nerd in me, I don't know. Add a bit of a theme of a fun theme because you can then play with it. You can allow yourself to say, oh, what if we did this? What if we did that? And you can play the what if game and to filter it down to figure out which ones really make sense. And remember, for it to make sense, you want to put it through that SMART framework. And if it successfully matches and meets each one of those 5 pieces of that framework, then it would be a project worth following through on and implementing. Okay, so define your metrics. Know what you want to know how you're going to measure it, and then start to look at how you can be reviewing every month to see if you're on target to meet those goals for those metrics. You want to make sure you're adding flexibility into your schedule, right? Making sure you have enough buffer time, making sure that you're reviewing, that you're do a time audit. And if it means you need to do a time audit a couple of times a year to make sure you're really taking advantage of being productive and not just busy, you want to do that. And then you want to look at that, the year as a quarter. And each quarter, there's going to be a theme to allow you to simplify what steps you need to take within that quarter to ultimately meet the goals that you set when you are defining your metrics. Make sense? Questions? What do you guys got? Anything? This is where I'm missing my water. Oh. All right. If you don't want to share in the comments, that's okay. That's fine. You can shoot me a DM with them. That's all right. You can create a post within the group, because I will almost guarantee you there's other people in the group that are going to have the same or a similar question and need some sort of support. So please lean into the group. If you haven't signed up for the 12 Slays of Marketing Magic, it is 12 days of a free resource every day that gets emailed to you. You can still do that. I will drop that link to subscribe to that and sign up in the comments when we're done. Each of the emails have a link to the previous days. So even though we are on day 5 today, they get sent out at 5 p.m. That you will have at the bottom the 4 links to the previous 4 days resources. So I will post a link for that. We will be on break, so no live trainings. We'll be back the first week of January. I think it's the 7th of January. I think the 6th is the Monday, so I think the 7th. We'll be doing, that's when we'll start our live trainings again. We will be holding another Savvy in the Square networking event in January. I'm not 100% sure of the date. I think it's going to be the 2nd or the 3rd week of January. So let me know if you have a specific time or day. Right now, we are doing them. It'll be held on Thursday, like a Thursday. I want to say 12:30 Eastern, I think. We may try a different time. So if you have a favorite time that you would prefer it at, let me know. Either drop it in the comments or send me a DM with that. So that way we can take a look and see if there's anything we can adjust, right? So we're always reviewing and adjusting. But I think that's it. That's all I've got. I really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you very much. Reach out, and I wish all of you happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year. Thank you so much for being part of the journey this year. We've had exponential growth, and I've loved every single minute of it, and I'm glad all of you are here with us. So have a beautiful day, and thank you.